morning, Rocky Mount. I'm Crystal Dawes. Thanks for being with us today. You know, we're going to be discussing something I'm very interested in. It's a new book that discusses some of the greatest stories in history and gives us insight into the lives of the reporters who told them. I'd like to welcome Tom Jory, the author of Breaking News and How the Associated Press Has Covered War, Peace, and Everything Else. Good morning, Tom. How are you?
Good morning, Crystal. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing just fine, thanks. You have great background in journalism. I'm wondering, what was your motivation in writing this book?
Well, the motivation was, and actually I'm one of several authors. I think there were about 13 different authors on the book, but the motivation was to tell the story of the AP both as history and as journalism, and produce a variety of very interesting stories about gathering the news, which AP has been doing since 1846.
I see. I'm thinking maybe this book shows how journalism has changed from years past to the present. Would you think that's true?
I think it is true, but primarily in a sense of technology. I think one of the things we learned from doing this book, researching it and writing it, was how the fundamentals of journalism, the techniques of news gathering, of honesty, of dedication, of willingness to go into difficult situations to get stories. I think all of that's been the same, and we've maintained that. What's different now is the technology, that we have a whole new, the use of computers, the use of cell phones and other wireless devices have changed the techniques of news gathering, but not the fundamentals of reporting.
Do you think those new technologies make it more difficult or help you out?
I think it makes it a lot easier to do the work. For example, in the days when we had to come back and write a story on a typewriter and edit it by hand and have it keyed into a system, was now with the use of desktop and laptop terminals, you can't imagine how we did it 20 years ago before these devices.
Yeah, I personally can't imagine. You're absolutely right. In this book, it's described some pivotal moments in history.
Mm-hmm.
Could you share a few of these with our viewers?
Sure. Some of the greatest stories of our day, or at least the last century and a half, were covered initially by AP. To give you a few examples, the wars, the World War II, actually going back to World War I and the Spanish-American War, World War II, Vietnam, now Iraq, the coverage of great disasters, the Hindenburg explosion of the German Zeppelin, the attack on the World Trade Center on September 11th, back to the Wright brothers and the space travel. And AP was on the scene with reporters, not just reporters, but experienced, skilled reporters who knew the subjects and knew the business and could report the stories as breaking news, was the way we have entitled the book, because in fact it was news that was breaking at those days. And back in those days, with only newspapers to serve, breaking news meant urgency, repeated leads on stories, background, that kind of thing. And so that's why we chose the title for this book.
It seems as if the journalists that brought you these stories have a story themselves. Did you share any of that in your book with your readers?
Oh, absolutely. And we had a lot of first-person accounts. One of my favorite stories occurred during the fall of Saigon in the Vietnamese War in 1975, where our bureau chief there, George Esper, who is still a friend of ours and retired, but we talk to him frequently. George was bureau chief in Saigon at the time of the fall in 1975, and he tells this story or others tell the story of him working on a story to present on the last hours of Saigon, when two North Vietnamese soldiers in full battle gear come into his office, and George is right in the middle of a phone call, digging information for the story. He shows them the refrigerator and says to get some day-old pound cake and a Coca-Cola and wait for him, and he'll be with them in a few minutes. which he was. And when he was done and they had enjoyed his hospitality, then they traced for him on a map their march into Saigon. It's just a typical story, but a fascinating one nonetheless.
It's been said that history doesn't repeat itself, rather that people do. In this collection, have you seen any of that, the past with the present?
Oh, a lot of it. A lot of things, as I have said many times, a lot of things have changed over the years. The stories and how you approach them and how you report them have been pretty much the same. I mean, there's always something new happening, and one of the fascinating things about journalism and about this book is that it's every page is a new event and new personalities and new stories of reporting and getting the news to the public. But by and large, as I say, the personalities change, the stories have a great similarity to them.
And lastly, what do you hope this book will leave the readers with?
Yeah, I think our greatest hope is, and as a matter of fact, one of our earliest reviewers, a blogger who reviewed the book, said that for all of those who believe that the credibility of the media is low, that the media is biased, is lazy, is careless, this book, at least as far as the AP is concerned, puts all of those myths to rest. And I think that if the public gets that point, we've accomplished our purpose in doing this book.
I think that's a great purpose. I think that we do need the press, and sometimes the press gets bad press, and so it's a lovely thing that somebody's taken the time to banish a little bit of that.
Well, I hope that comes through, and I think it does. My sense is that it does.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today.
Crystal, I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too, thanks.
And thank you, Rocky Mount. I hope you'll join us next time on WNCR TV for news, views, and interviews. I'm Crystal Dawes. We'll see you next time.